Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be doing a British Invasion collection video, and right behind me are all my British Invasion albums. Yeah, the first two rows up in the middle are all the albums I have right now. Um, the albums that I need are 365. I have like, I'm not counting compilation albums and repeat albums that I'm going to show you. I have 202 out of 365, so I figure, hey, that's over half. That's good enough to make a make a as of video right now, and yeah, I'm going to go from A to Z or A to Z if you are Canadian, if you're a Canadian viewer, and hope you enjoyed this. This gonna be fun, as there's so many albums that I own for this specific kind of music. Starting it off with the Animals, with their debut album from 1964. It is the Animals, just self-titled album. This is a EMI Starline budget label release. Uh, this was originally released in Colombia, also an EMI label release, but this is a nice little reissue, more affordable if you ever plan on buying it. I do like this album, but I do prefer the US version, the order of the albums I'm going to show is for the UK albums, the US albums, and all the compilations or live albums if I do own any. And yeah, that's the first album by them. Good release, but if you ask me, I do prefer the US albums. That's just a personal preference. Their second album, released in the UK, their 1965 release, my 1965 release, Animal Tracks, and this is an original mono copy of the album. It's in good condition. I got this for a fairly decent price. I would give you the price, but I forgot. But I remember being good enough to buy it, and I will say I'm not the biggest fan of this album. I do prefer the US version, which is also called I'm Here to Watch the Albums. Awesome. Great. Great. Nice to see you in the chat, Garrett. But yeah, this is my 65 pressing of Animal Tracks. It's all right. It's not a bad album, but they would go off. Their US albums are much better, as the hit singles on it. I also decided to include the Eric Burdon and the Animals stuff because, well, they started making music in the 60s, and let's face it, the Animals had a very short discography, and these albums, I like to consider it to be part of the regular Animals catalog, even though it's basically a different band, but Eric Burdon's in both of them. They should have did that with the Birds. Should have been like Roger McGuinn and the Birds, like kind of a different band, but I don't know. I'm just going off on a rant now. This is my original pressing of Eric Burdon and the Animals, Winds of Changes. And this is a really good psychedelic album. Very different from their usual bluesy R&B stuff, but it's still really good. Their cover of Painted Black is amazing, though not as good as the Rolling Stones version. It's still a really good version. That's their 67 release. And here is their 68 album, The Twain Shall Meet. And this is another one of their psychedelic albums of the 60s. And has a really good song called Monterey. Great song. And Sky Pilot, which, if you're familiar with their Eric Burdon, the Animals, you would really like Sky Pilot. It's probably probably my favorite song by the Animals in general. It's just really good. I also own their double album, 1968 pressing of Love Is. And very cool pressing. It's a double album, which never thought I was ever going to think the Animals were ever going to do a double album, but they surprised me. They do an amazing cover of Ring of Fire. Also, they do a really good cover of To Love Somebody, which really good cover. And that's basically all the UK albums I own by them. I only need one more of their UK albums to finish my UK Animal collection. So when I do finish the collection and I redo this video, it's just keep you all the albums I just showed, but one extra one. Now for the US albums, me and Garrett heard this album together one time. This is the US self-titled album with the Houses of the Rising Sun. And I mean, not only is that one song on there, but Take You Back to Walker, Baby Can I Take You Home, really great pop songs on this album, which I feel like were extremely missed on their first album. But yeah, it's much better than the UK version. The UK version is good, but yeah, if you want a good debut album by the Animals, check out the US version. Here is the Animals on tour. Don't be confused. This is not a live album, which is what I thought originally. But this is the one I just showed you was an original pressing debut, but this is a re-release. It's all right. It has a bunch of the songs from the UK Animal Tracks album, which I like the UK Animal Tracks album, but there are quite a bit of songs I'm not crazy about that are on here. But yeah, it's good. I will say I'm Crying is a good song. Nice original. And now for probably my favorite of their US albums. And that is Animal Tracks, which this is the US version. Much different album cover too. We Gotta Get Out of This Place opens this thing up. Much better than Mess Around, which was the UK opener. Take It Easy, Babe, which is great. Bring It On Home, and The Story of Bo Diddley, which opened their UK debut, but it actually works better on this album, in my opinion. And then side 2 opens up with Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. P.S. I'm driving, so I can't comment too much. Yeah, I knew that. Appreciate the comments, though. The Animals. I Can't Believe It. Nice little slow song. Probably one of my favorite of their slower songs. Club a Go-Go, which is a nice bumping song. Really like Roberta. Bury My Body is great. And for Miss Cocker is all right. It's an all right closer. But yeah, I do much prefer that album over the Animal Tracks that we do that the UK gets. I feel like the UK got robbed. Okay, I got an original pressing of this album, and I'm like, wow, not only that, but it's in really good condition. And that is Animalization. Can't believe I got this record for $15, and it's like in great condition. Don't Bring Me Down, One Monkey Won't Stop the Show, You're on My Mind is amazing. CC Rider's my favorite off the album. Inside Looking Out's great too. The first side's amazing, but side 2 sort of takes me off a little. When I'm Sweet Little 16 and I Put a Spell on You, I'm not crazy about those covers. If you want to hear a good cover of I Put a Spell on You, listen to the CCR song. That song's way better. I mean, that version's way better. Here's another Animalization. Animalisms. So yeah, this is a decent album. I only heard it once, but that's about it. I should listen to it more because I'm going to eventually rank all the albums and not just the Animals, but in general, just the British Invasion. And this one's good. It has a song called Shake, which I heard originally from the Small Faces, so I prefer the Small Faces version, but this is good too. Not a whole lot to say about the album, but it's all right. Next album That was the last Eric Burden. Well, that was the last like regular Animals album. This is the first U.S. Eric Burden and the Animals albums, which is called Eric is Here. I only heard this album once, but I thought it was really good. Help Me Girl is probably the best song on the album, but it's good. It's not in. Yeah, no, it's not on any social media. Like not on any like it's not on Spotify or Apple Music. So yeah, yeah, it's one of those albums you have to look up on YouTube. It's the original pressing. It's in shrink wrap, but probably gonna take it out of it because I don't know. Actually, I don't know. But yeah, it's a good album. But yeah, their first UK Eric and the Burden albums is can't think of the name right now. Winds of Changes, which the one I just showed you. And here's another US exclusive album, Every One of Us, which very surprised this was a US exclusive. This was a really good album. White Houses is good. Uppers and Downers is great. New York, 1963. America, 68. Very surprised that the Animals would go for such a long song. I mean, to me, it's great, but caught me off guard when I first heard it. I'm like, dang, wasn't expecting the Animals to go long, And before we were rudely interrupted, this was it's called The Original Animals, and this was their reunion album. They made 2 reunion albums. This one right here. I only listened to this once. I don't have a lot to say about it. Same with the next album I'm going to show, which is called Arc. If I could put this album away. And here it is. It's in shrink wrap. Always nice to have nice shrink wrap albums. I gotta listen to these 2 albums more because I have nothing to really say about them, besides them being half decent albums. Am I good now? Am I good? Oh my God, it's so annoying. This is the second stream this thing happened. Oh, so annoying. Wait, let me check my video right now. How bad it is. Okay, just bad video quality right now. Hopefully it gets better. Okay, good. Well, here is my 2 copies of the Best of the Animals. I mean, if you're not interested in their deep cuts, if you're more into the best, like if you're into like House of the Rising Sun and all the best songs on each of their albums, that well, not best. If you're into if you're not into the deep cuts, just get the best of the animals. But yeah, I own two of them. One of them I owned because it was given to me, and two because I bought it and I forgot I had it. Best of animals, but whoopsie daisy. I mean, yeah. I'm not usually into best of albums. Normally, unless I really don't like their deep cuts, I usually definitely go for the albums. But yeah, that's it for the animals. Yeah. Now to go to the Beatles. Yeah. Uh, they're the next in line. And I have two copies of Please Please Me. First is my reissue I got from a box set that I got for Christmas. And yeah. Oh, Garrett's funny. Yeah, we were talking about it one time, and yeah, the greatest band of all time, not objectively. Nobody else comes close, and if you disagree, you're a fool. Well, hey, only a fool would say that with someone who doesn't agree with you. Only a fool can say that. Or I forgot what the name of the Steely Dan song is, but only a fool would say that. Of course, Please Please Me, I have a reissue version, and I have a 2009 version, which, yeah, I'm eventually gonna sell these. I want to buy. I want to buy mono versions of these albums. And yeah, but yeah, the Beatles. Please Please Me. I mean, if I didn't like the Beatles, I mean, some people might think I don't like the Beatles, but if I didn't like the Beatles, well, obviously, I want to have my full British Invasion collection, but I wouldn't be owning more than one copy of a Beatle album if I didn't like it. No, siree. No, no, no. No, 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 no. I have two copies of With the Beatles, and of course, well, every double copy I have is the 2009 and the stereo box set one. So here's the 2009 box set version. Here's my 2009 version. Only a fool would say that. Perfect response. Yes, sir. But yeah, love, Please Please Me. What the Beatles is good, but you know, not nearly as good in my opinion. Some people might disagree. Most people will agree, but who knows? Love to start an argument. I'm just kidding. I hate arguments, but here's my 2000. This is my 70s stereo copy of A Hard Day's Night, and here's my 2009 copy. Very great early Beatlemania British Invasion album. If you're a fan of music and never heard A Hard Day's Night, and you're into like early 60s British Invasion music, then why haven't you heard it yet? But third thing is go listen to it. But yeah, I have 3 copies of Beatles for sale, which very absurd because I hate this album with all my guts, almost. I mean, there are good songs on it, but it's a crime that I have 3 copies of it. But it just happens to be first I have a mono copy of Beatles for sale because I do want to own all the mono Beatle albums, even the not so good ones. Second copy I own is a reissue, the stereo 70s copy. And lastly, I own a 2009 copy of Beatles for sale. But yeah, Beatles for sale. Beatles' worst album, in my opinion. Most people will say a certain other album, which we'll get to that. Just wait. Just you wait. Hey, Jason, how's it going? You came in at the right time, Jason. I'm going over my Beatle albums. Because, you can't ever go British Invasion without talking about the Beatles. They basically invented British Invasion. So, yeah, it would be disrespectful not to cover them at all. But yeah, I'm going alphabetical from Y to Z. If you are, well, Y to Z if you're American, or Y to Z if you're Canadian. Here's my 2009 copy of Help, which, yeah, that copy sucks. So I'm glad I have another copy now. But yeah, very great album. I mean, Yesterday, right away you got to think about Yesterday, but of course the title track is very iconic for all the best reasons. The Night Before, which is a very underrated song. You got to love your hide. You got to hide your love away. Great song. So many great songs on this album. Yeah, very underrated too. Like when people think about early Beatle, like pre-Rubber Soul, they think either Please Please Me or Hard Day's Night, which I don't blame them. That album's great. Next album, of course, I got to show off my 70s copy of Rubber Soul. And then there's my 2009 copy of Rubber Soul. Do I even have to discuss about Rubber Soul? I mean, it's Rubber Soul, for crying out loud. Arguably the best Beatles album. And here is Revolver. Here's both my 2009 and my 70s copy. And again, it's Revolver. Like, what do you expect me to say that hasn't been said already? Arguably the best Beatle album. I have 4 copies of Sgt. Pepper's. Before you say it, yes, I know. 4 copies of Sgt. Pepper. Like, how in the world did you end up getting that many copies of Sgt. Pepper? Well, first off, I have my 2017 copy of Sgt. Pepper's, which, I mean, it's an R-rate pressing. I do prefer the 70 stereo version, which I do own. I also have an original pressing of, I have a 1975 version of Sgt. Pepper's. And last but not least, generously sent by Garrett, he sent me a mono copy of Sgt. Pepper's, which is the only good way of listening to the album. I'll leave it at that. I own 2 copies of the White Album, but it's in the basement, and my dog sleeps in the basement, and I can't go there right now. So here's my one White Album copy, but I do own 2 copies. One 2009, well, that's 2018 actually, and the other one is 70 stereo pressing, which is a heck of a lot better sounding. But yeah. And now for also Sgt. Pepper's is amazing album. I don't know why I didn't say anything, but arguably the best Beatles album. That same goes with the White Album. Just wanted to make those 2 albums precedent. Arguably the Beatles' worst album is Yellow Submarine. I own 2 copies of it. This was the first stereo-only album by the Beatles, so 70s remaster in 2009. Best sounding pressings that the Beatles can get that are in mono. I have those, and they were amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I actually think Yellow Submarine's a criminally underrated album. Again, if I hated the Beatles, I wouldn't say that. I would jump down on the Yellow Submarine hate. Yeah, I own 4. 1, 2, 3. If I hated the Beatles, why would I? Well, I own 5 copies of Abbey Road. I own 5 copies of Abbey Road. One's a deluxe version, and the rest are my copies. I own not 1 copy, not 2 copies, not 3 copies, not 4, but 5 copies of Abbey Road. But yeah, I love Abbey Road. This album is a masterpiece. Come Together, Something, Oh Darling, I Want Her, She's So Heavy, the entire second side. I mean, what's not to love? But yeah. If you don't like Abbey Road, then never listen to music, because clearly you don't appreciate good music when you hear it. And that's coming from a supposed Beatle hater. I'm not saying anyone said it to me so far, but people are gonna think that after some stuff I said. I said some things that might warrant people thinking that. So I don't blame people, but I don't hate the Beatles. Always have to like say that every once in a while. It's like, I don't hate the Beatles. I mean, they're the first band that got me really into music, so without them, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be making this video. Let It Be to the 70s pressing. Also have an original pressing. I have a 2009 pressing. So 3 copies of Let It Be. Controversial opinion coming up. I prefer this Let It Be over Let It Be Naked. I know people might be like, oh, but that wasn't what Paul McCartney imagined it to be. I don't care. I go by what sounds good. I don't care about what they think. I mean, if Paul McCartney really wanted it to be his Let It Be, he would have made it happen, because it's freaking Paul McCartney. But yeah. I mean, they really are special. I wouldn't put them in God status, but the things that they did in such a short span of time is something that I will always give credit for. Like, not many bands could be around for such a short time and make such a big impact in music. I mean, even CCR, like, I mean, they made so many great hits in a short amount of time, but they didn't make the impact like the Beatles did. So that's something I always give them credit for. And well, I'm not saying it was told to me, but some people who are watching me are gonna think like, oh, he hates the Beatles. He's one of those people. But if I hated the Beatles, I wouldn't say that. I would just be like, oh, Beatles are special, whatever. But no, Beatles really are just they were influential, to say the least. Here's my copy. I'm gonna go through my U.S. albums now. Here's my copy of Meet the Beatles. Very crappy condition, but I just wanted the U.S. albums because they had it on my record store. I'm like, I might as well get the U.S. albums since they're there. That goes for the second album, which is good. Probably my favorite early Beatle U.S. album. A Hard Day's Night, the bastardized version of it. That's all I'm going to say about the Hard Day's Night album. Something new. Basically a Hard Day's Night, but without the name Hard Day's Night on it. And without the title track, it's just a bunch of the songs from the album, plus a crappy German version of I Want to Hold Your Hand. Beatles 65. Love Beatles 65. Really great album. The better version of Beatles for Sale. I mean, has She's a Woman and I Feel Fine on it. That alone makes it better. But yeah, those 2 songs make it better. I could go explain why, but that's just my opinion. Here's a Beatle album called Beatles Story, which is not Not really a Beatle album, but it's technically not a Beatle album, but I'm just gonna say it is because it's part of the U.S. catalog, and back then this was really good because people, knowing the story of the Beatles and all that. Glad there was no UK release though, because that would have devalued their discography a ton. The early Beatles, which is basically a crappy version of Please Please Me. Next. Hate to be harsh on these US albums, but I have to be because most of them are horrible. Beatles 6, which basically, yeah, it's basically like it's like a documentary album. I would not check it out. I only own it because it was cheap and I wanted to complete my US albums by them. Yeah, basically Beatles 6 is basically some of the crappy songs from Beatles for Sale. Some songs from like Kansas City. Amazing song, 8 Days a Week on it. That should have been the opener. Don't know why it was. And You Like Me Too Much is good from the Help album from the UK. Bad Boy, which is awful. They recorded it specifically for this album, but it's horrible. I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, which is a mediocre song. Same with Words of Love. What Are You Doing is mediocre. Yes, It is a good B-side to Ticket to Ride. Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which, believe it or not, works better on this album because it's not closing after a beautiful song like Yesterday. Tell Me What You See, and Every Little Thing Is Good. Yeah, very mediocre album. Very, very mediocre. Speaking of Help, I have the bastardized version of Help. Yeah. Here's the bastardized version of Help. And just like A Hard Day's Night, that's basically where I'm just going to leave it off as the bastardized version of Help. Rubber Soul, the US version. There's a lot of great things about this album, and there's a lot of crappy things about this album. Already, the elephant in the room. No, Nowhere Man. No, If I Needed Someone. I get it. That sucks because those two songs made Rubber Soul. But it does get rid of Drive My Car, which I will admit I am a little sick and tired of, and it gets rid of What Goes On, which that song is not good. So it got rid of two songs I can care less about, but it also gets rid of two songs that I really love. So, but it also includes I've Just Seen a Face and It's Only Love, which, yeah, U.S. Rubber Soul. If you would have asked me when I first heard this album, I would have said it was the bastardized version of Rubber Soul, but not really. There's actually quite a bit of things to actually like about it, like not having What Goes On. But this album I'm going to show you, Bastardized Revolver, and I'm going to leave it at that. Magical Mystery Tour. Yes, Magical Mystery Tour. Not probably, is definitely the best US album. It's good enough to be considered a UK album. But I still put them in with the US albums because being technical, it is a US album, so I'm gonna have to take it in that way. And yeah, it's one of those albums you gotta listen to for yourself. This was the first Beatle album I ever owned, so that should prove how good this album is. If it's good enough, if it was good enough to be in my collection for the first time, like over Sgt. Pepper's and Revolver and all that. So yeah, they should have included Paperback Writer and Rain. I agree. That would have made. I actually would have liked it better than the UK Revolver if that was the case. Where is Yesterday and Today? Where is Yesterday and Today? Oh man, I skipped over it. Thank you for mentioning that, Garrett. Thank you for mentioning that. Oh man, that would have sucked. Great albums there, sir. Thank you, Jordan Gassman. I appreciate the compliment. Yesterday and Today, probably, definitely, arguably the best U.S. album by them. I'm gonna give that prize to Magical Mystery Tour, but I don't blame anyone for thinking this is the best of them. I mean, it does include Drive My Car, but I actually do like it better on the context of this album. And then I'm Only Sleeping, Nowhere Man, Dr. Robert, which I actually do. I'm starting to like better now. Yesterday, which is, yeah, love Yesterday. Act Naturally is great. And Your Birkin scene opens up the second side. If I Needed Someone, We Could Work It Out. What Goes On breaks up the flow of things, but Day Tripper. I mean, this is just a solid album. I would have killed myself if I would have watched over this video and like, oh man, where's Yesterday and Today? Why didn't I include that in my collection? I mean, there's always the second collection, but man, that would have broke my heart. That album came in between Rubber Soul and Revolver. Speaking of Hey Jude, let me go through the comments. My favorite U.S. album? Okay. It's interesting because their UK albums are basically considered canon except Magical Mystery Tour is the one U.S. album added. Yeah, because most of the U.S. albums is just the UK albums, but butchered most of the time. It would have been weird if we would have considered the U.S. albums canon as well, but Magical Mystery Tour is like all new music, which, yeah. Hey Jude, which should have been on the White Album, but it wasn't. Hey Jude, Revolution, Paperback Writer, I Should Have Known Better, Lady Madonna, Can't Buy Me Love, Don't Let Me Down, Ballad of Johnny Yoko, Rain, and the Old Brown Shoe. Most of this album is really good. It's more of an odds and sods album for me than a album. Like, it reminds me of Odds and Sods by The Who, really, because there's songs like Can't Buy Me Love in the mix of Rain and Lady Madonna. So, yeah. I do own 2 compilation albums. Past Masters. Beat the Beatles is better than the Beatles. Oh yeah, Meet the Beatles is way better. Oh, I don't know if you were trying to go for a joke with Beat the Beatles is better than than with the Beatles. But yeah, Past Masters, which has all their singles and B-sides and stuff that wasn't included in their albums, which I feel like a lot of other British bands should have that, like The Who and the Hollies, because there's a lot of great music that the Hollies made that never ended up on albums. Beatles 67 to 70, which Garrett told me that was his first album he ever owned by the Beatles. And congrats to that, because this album is brilliant. Probably my favorite compilation album. Probably my favorite compilation album, if you ask me. Normally, I hate compilation albums, but this compilation album just such a good job riling up all the best songs from 67 to 70. And last but not least is from the box set. It's called Rarities, which it's not really rarities. It's basically just another Past Masters album, but it was part of a box set. So yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I forgot. No, I had red first, then blue. I mean, red's also amazing. I want to own red at one point. I never owned it, but I really want to own it. But that I love the Animals, Beatles, Kinks, the Hollies. I enjoy it all. Nice. Well, here's the next band, which I only have. It's crazy. I show you all those Beatles albums, and then this next band, I only own 1 album of theirs. I mean, they only had 1 UK album, like 3 US albums. But here's Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. It's called Listen. Same record label as the Beatles. It's a good album, but definitely nowhere near as good as any Beatle album. I mean, after going through all those Beatle albums, I can't really be surprised when I say that. Now here's a band called Chad and Jeremy. It's not a band, it's a duo, but I'm like, I might as well include the duos since there's only 2, and yeah. Wonder If Love is worth checking out. It's all right. The Animals are a great band. Yeah, they really are. Very underrated. I mean, they have the hits, but I mean, besides the hits, they have really great music. Here's Chad and Jeremy, Yesterday's Gone, which includes a summer song, which is really nice. It's a good album. Not really much to say about Chad and Jeremy. I just figured I might as well clump them into the British Invasion since, yeah. Chad and Jerry, maybe Before and After. Before and After is great. Say It Is Untrue is good. Evil Hearted Me is good. They have good albums. They're probably one of my least favorite of the British Invasion because they never really experimented that much. I mean, they did have experimental albums, but no other albums are really worth talking about. I Don't Want to Lose You, Baby is a great album. Baby Don't Go. I Don't Want to Lose You, Baby, great song. Mr. Tambourine Man, pretty good cover from a Bob Dylan song. I mean, it's no Birds version, but it does the job. And here's a compilation album called More Chad and Jeremy, which I saw this for $9. I'm like, has some songs I like. My Coloring Book, Donna Donna, Dirty Old Town, My Coloring Book. It was a very good year. Really good stuff. That's the end of my Chad and Jeremy discography. Albums I own so far. And now we reach a band that I actually really quite enjoy. It's called Cream. And here's my copy of Fresh Cream, the UK version. It's good, but I much prefer the US version because it has I Feel Free on it, and that's the best song on the album. Rather than that, it's a decent album. Disraeli Gears. Really, really good album. If you've never heard Disraeli Gears before, you're missing out. Yeah. Sunshine of Your Love, Strange Brew, great stuff. And then the Beatles, Red and Blue albums are great. Yeah, they're great. I own 2 copies of the Wheels of Fire album. I own an original UK version. I also own an original US pressing. This album is in crappy condition. I really needed to upgrade it, so very glad I was able to upgrade it. And here is the Cream's album, Goodbye. Pardon me. I'm going a bit cold, so bear with me. Yeah, Goodbye. Great stuff. Good album. Besides Wheels of Fire, Disraeli Gears, they never had any albums that like they have half an amazing discography, but then half their other discography is just good. I just have a best of Cream CD. Yeah, you're better off. If you're not interested in their albums, that's fine. I will say Disraeli Gears is amazing. I much prefer the stereo version of that album actually. And here's the US Fresh Cream album that I was discussing about before. Besides taking off a spoonful and replacing it with the single, not really a whole lot to say about them, about that album. Now for a band called Dave Clark 5. They had quite a bit of hits in the early 60s. One of their singles actually being I Want to Hold Your Hand, and that's the lead-off track for their first album, Glad All Over. This is a US album. I don't own any of their UK albums yet, but that's part of the collection I own. Glad All Over, Bits and Pieces, Do You Love Me? Those 3 songs are amazing. There are some really good deep cuts on it. She's All Mine, which is my favorite song by them. Doodah's good. I Know You is great. Really, really good album. Definitely their best album, though. Which I find that to be pretty sad that a debut album's their best, but I don't know. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, if you can't follow up any of your albums that are better than it, I don't know. Here's a repressing of Glad All Over. Here's this album called American Tour, which is my second favorite Dave Clark 5 album. Has a song called Because, which is very Beatlesque. I love it. The rest of the songs are good. I Want You Still is good. Anytime You Want Love is good. Old Soul is good. There are good songs on this album, but none of the songs on this album, like none of the deep cuts really are as good as the first album. Which is a shame because I feel like this band had a lot of potential of being a really great band, but they never really did anything that worthwhile after their first album. Coast to Coast, which is really good. Not amazing, but it's really good. Any way you want, it's great. But besides Crying Over You, none of the songs really live up to the first track. It's good. Really good, as a matter of fact. And there's this album called Having a Wild Weekend, which has probably one of their biggest hits, Catch Us If You Can, Having a Wild Weekend, which is the opening track. But again, nothing really worthwhile on this album. Like, I own another copy of it because it was dirt cheap. Yeah. I only got it for $2, so I'm like, might as well. Just in case the first copy dies. Here is Dave D, Dozy Beaky Mick and Titch. Yeah, big name, but here's their debut 1966 album. Really great album. I really love Dave D, Dozy Beaky Mick and Titch. I actually released the video of the album, but got taken down, sadly, but really good album. Probably really great song on it called Hold Tight. Definitely check that song out, if anything. I mean, check out the whole album. You have to look it up on YouTube because it's not on any streaming services, so yeah. I mean, it is, but like most of the tracks are blocked, and it's a mess. Here's their second album. If probably one of my favorite album names. If music be the food of love, and then you flip over to the back, be prepared for indigestion. I'm like, man, is that a unique album name? I do love this album so much. Bang, I'm on the Top, Hideaway, Shame, Help Me, Master Llewellyn, and Hair in My Chinny Chin Chin, and a song called Bend It. Really great stuff. This next album is probably the closest thing they came up to with, like, not a psychedelic album, but more of like them sort of being serious. It's called an album called If No One Sang. This was probably their most serious albums that they released. Not that there's any complaints about them not making any serious albums in the 67, but this is their 68 album. But yeah, very good stuff. Probably my least favorite album of theirs, but I do like the effort to try to be a little serious, you know. Here's their last album, released in 69, called Together. Here's my first copy of it. The second side is, like, the last song on each side is skips a lot, and I don't like that. And here's another copy I bought, which is better. But yeah, that's all my albums by Dave D, Dozy Beaky, Mick and Titch. Handful. Big name. Next band, Freddie and the Dreamers. Very underrated group. Probably looking at me, it's like, who the heck are they? But yeah, very, like, you look up the British Invasion, you get all the bands you know, but then you get to these names, you're like, who the heck is this? Who the heck is that? But no, I was going through this. I have to go through all the albums in order to have a complete collection. And Freddie and the Dreamers, very Beatlesque group. No, there's like no hits on it. Mostly covers. There's a good Orbison cover, Crying, but yeah, it's a really solid album. I wouldn't say it's as good. I wouldn't say it's nearly as good as Please Please Me, but you know, it does the job of having a good debut album. Here's another one. You Are Mad for Me. Here's another original pressing. But yeah, I like the debut out better, but this album's good. That's all my UK albums of theirs. Do the Freddy, really catchy song. The album's good, but yeah, not a lot of good deep cuts on it. And here's a Canadian debut of Freddy and the Dreamers. Yeah, Canadian. I ordered this thinking this was the UK album, but turns out it was the US, not US, it was the Canadian debut. And last but not least for the Fs is the Foremost, the ones I own. And here's First and Foremost, which it's a decent debut album. Half the album is really good, but then half the album is like joking, goofy songs, and I'm just like, oh, really? They had the capability of making a great pop record, but they never did. And this was their only album too, which sucked. And here's a repressing of First and Foremost, but like it's not really it's more of a compilation album, if anything. Okay, Herman's Hermits. Oh man, I do have quite a bit of their albums. But here's the beginning of it. Here's their debut album, their UK debut album, Herman's Hermits. Really good debut album. Nice, easy rock and roll. What's more, it's probably the pop. I'd say the Herman's Hermits is probably the poppiest of the British Invasion, if you ask me. But nothing to take them away from that. But yeah, if you thought the Beatles were too poppy, then stay far away from the Herman's Hermits because they are really, really poppy. Here's my copy of both sides of the Herman's Hermits. I do prefer the UK version. US version's good too, but it's more that yeah. This past few times I've been streaming, this has been happening. Very upsetting. Oh man, very frustrating. Not having the best internet. Okay, here's my copy of Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter. This is their last album that they released as a band. Yeah, crazy. They only had. God damn it! This fucking internet. So annoying. Super annoying. Sorry for the delay, guys. This is annoying. This is probably going to go into a part 2, so hopefully my internet will work by then. God damn it. Okay, better. I think. Yep, better. That's good. Sorry for the delay, guys. Yeah, this is their last album. Yeah, they only had 3 albums, which is weird. Well, I lied. They had 4 albums. Yeah, they only had 4 albums, which is very weird because they were not big in the UK, but I'm very very surprised that they were only around for such a short amount of time. But yeah, those are my. Well, don't know why I included the one UK album. Well, it's both UK and US, but here's the album that came before it. Actually, 67. The one I showed you was 68. 67 album. There's a kind of hush. I don't know why I included that in the US mix. I mean, they both came out in the US and they both. I don't know. Weird. But yeah, good, great albums. If there's a kind of hush. This next album I own 3 copies of, which, well, the first copy I own because I ordered it online, but the second 3, the other 2 were because they were really dirt cheap, and I think this is a really great debut album. So here's my second copy of this album. Not second copy, but this is the second pressing where they changed the album cover to Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter for the promo. On the original cover, it's I'm Into Something Good. I have 2 more copies of that. One in shrink wrap, which I only got for $7, and another copy of that. But yeah, there's like 3 variations of the covers, sort of like the Police album where there was like 3 different copies of the thing, which is interesting to say the least. Whenever there's alternate album covers, but yeah, this is their second album I'm going to show. It's called Herman's Hermits on Tour, which again, very weird to have an album called On Tour because people are going to think, oh, it's a live album. I'm not going to buy this. But it does have some hits on it. I'm Henry the Eighth I Am. That's the only hit on the album. It was on their UK debut album, but it wasn't on their US debut, which was weird. And crazy story about Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter is that it was released as a single. It wasn't released as a single in the UK. It was recorded as a throwaway to finish off their first album because they had 11 songs. They didn't want to have a 12th song on it. So they're like, let's just record this nonsense little British tune. And in the US, it became a huge hit because the record company's daughter really liked it. And they're like, let's release this as a single. And rest is history. Became a huge hit for them. Here is an original pressing of Hold On. Here's a second copy. And here's a third copy, because why not? Great album. Love it to death. Definitely, probably my favorite album of theirs. It's either my favorite or my second favorite. I'll show you what I think my favorite is in a little bit. I gotta end the video soon. Here is both sides of Herman's Hermits. Glad I got an hour in at least. It's a good album. The second side gets a little weird though, because they were trying to be like the Beatles at the time. Because they were, don't have to explain why. Here's an album called Blaze, which is their attempt into psychedelia. Not psychedelia, but like their attempt to being more serious into their music. And they even cover a Donovan song, which they cover a Donovan song, which, yeah. That should explain it all if you know how Donovan's like in 67. And here's the last Herman's Hermits album I own. Well, Blaze is technically their last US album, but here is the best of the Herman's Hermits. First Herman's Hermits albums I ever owned. Well, that should wrap it up for this video. I will be posting a part 2 when I'm available, which should be in like hour and a half, if most. And I'm gonna be doing a part 2 stream with me going over the Hollies, the Kinks, the Rolling Stones, which I have many copies. I have many Rolling Stones albums, and of course, my favorite band of all time, The Who. So very excited to go over that. Of course, there's other bands in between those bands, but that's gonna be a very exciting stream for me. So hope you guys enjoyed this first stream. I'm even gonna change the name because part 1 it changes. And hope you guys enjoyed this video, this stream, and I'll see you guys in the next stream, which will be not very, very shortly, but shortly, to say the least.